Tonight, we embark on a journey to the heart of the kingdom of Eldoria, where secrets lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered. Breathe deeply, relax your mind, and let the story carry you far away, to a place where the stars light the way and the magic of an ancient prophecy calls to those brave enough to seek its truth. Rest now as Prince Aric sets forth on his quest, and let the peaceful rhythm of his footsteps lull you into the gentle embrace of sleep. In the heart of the ancient kingdom of Eldoria, where the winds carried whispers of magic and the forests harboured secrets older than time, there stood a castle of stone and iron. Its towering spires clawed at the sky, casting long shadows over the land below. Within these hallowed walls, beneath the echoing arches and among the labyrinthine corridors, there lay a room untouched by time, the royal library. This library was a place of wonder, its shelves groaning under the weight of countless tomes and scrolls, each filled with the wisdom of ages past. The air was thick with the scent of parchment and dust, a testament to the centuries that had passed since these texts were first penned. And it was here, in this sanctuary of knowledge, that Prince Aric, the youngest son of King Aemon, spent his days. Unlike his elder brothers, who revelled in the art of war and the thrill of the hunt, Aric was a creature of curiosity. He was drawn not to the clashing of swords, but to the quiet rustle of turning pages. His heart beat in time with the rhythm of the quill as it scratched across the page, and his mind was ever hungry for the stories and secrets hidden within the library's vast collection. On a day like any other, Aric found himself in a forgotten corner of the library, where the light of the sun barely reached and the air was cool and still. His fingers traced the spines of ancient books, feeling the rough texture of the leather and the delicate ridges of embossed titles. It was here, among the shadows, that he discovered a book unlike any he had seen before. Its cover was of deep, midnight blue, adorned with intricate silver filigree that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. There was no title, only a single symbol emblazoned on the front, a chalice. Intrigued, Aric carefully pulled the book from the shelf, its weight heavy in his hands. He opened it to the first page, where the ink was dark and crisp, as if freshly written. The words that greeted him were those of an ancient prophecy, one that had been whispered among the scholars of Eldoria for generations, but had long been forgotten by the world at large. The crystal chalice of knowledge, the text began, is an artifact of untold power, hidden deep within the forest of whispers. It grants wisdom beyond measure to the one who is pure of heart, revealing the secrets of the past and the truths of the future. But beware, for knowledge comes at a price, and the chalice's power is not to be taken lightly. As Aric read on, his heart quickened. The prophecy spoke of trials and guardians, of ancient riddles and spectral nights. It told of a journey fraught with danger, but also of the incredible power that awaited the one who could claim the chalice. a power that could unlock the mysteries of the world, that could change the fate of kingdoms. For a moment, Aric hesitated. The tales of the Forest of Whispers were well known in Eldoria, a place where magic was said to linger in every leaf and stone, where those who entered often did not return. But the lure of the Chalice was strong, and the promise of knowledge, of understanding the mysteries that had long eluded even the wisest of Eldoria's scholars, was irresistible. With a resolute heart, Aric closed the book, the symbol of the chalice glowing faintly in the dim light. He knew then that his path was set. The prophecy had been unearthed, and with it, a destiny that would take him far beyond the walls of his father's castle, into the depths of the unknown. The morning sun bathed the kingdom of Eldoria in a golden light as Prince Aric stood at the castle gates, his heart aflutter with anticipation. The world beyond the walls stretched out before him, vast and unknown, a tapestry of rolling hills, dense forests, and winding rivers. In his hand, he held the ancient map he had found within the pages of the prophecy. A map that would guide him to the Forest of Whispers, where the crystal chalice of knowledge awaited. The journey ahead was daunting, but Aric's resolve was unshaken. He was not embarking on this quest out of a mere sense of duty. It was a calling, one that stirred something deep within him. The thought of unraveling the ancient mysteries of Eldoria, of bringing wisdom and light to his kingdom, filled him with a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever known. As he made his way through the kingdom's bustling marketplace, Aric could feel the weight of the citizens' gazes upon him. They whispered among themselves, wondering what the young prince, who had rarely left the castle's library, was doing outside the confines of his father's stronghold. But Aric paid them no heed. His thoughts were already miles ahead, in the shadowy depths of the Forest of Whispers. The journey was long, and the road ahead uncertain. Aric travelled alone, for he knew this was a quest that required not the strength of an army, but the wisdom and courage of a single soul. The map guided him through the countryside, its ancient ink lines revealing paths forgotten by time. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting the world in hues of crimson and gold, Aric found himself standing at the edge of the forest. The Forest of Whispers was a place of legend, where the trees seemed to whisper secrets to one another in the wind, and shadows danced just out of sight. The canopy above was thick, blocking out most of the light, leaving the forest floor cloaked in a perpetual twilight. The air was cool and damp, heavy with the scent of earth and moss. Aric took a deep breath, steeling himself before stepping into the forest. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the world seemed to change. The sounds of the outside world faded away, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant calls of unseen creatures. The path before him was narrow and winding, flanked by ancient trees whose gnarled roots twisted like serpents across the ground. As he ventured deeper into the forest, Aric felt a presence, a sense of being watched. His hand instinctively went to the hilt of the sword at his side, though he knew that steel would be of little use against the magic that pervaded this place. Yet, it was not fear that gripped him, but a heightened sense of awareness, as if the forest itself were testing his resolve. Hours passed, or perhaps it was days. Time seemed to lose its meaning within the forest's embrace. Just as Aric began to wonder if he had lost his way, he caught sight of a figure in the distance. It was an old man, cloaked in tattered robes, sitting beside a small fire. The light of the flames cast long shadows on the ground, making the man appear larger than life. Aric approached cautiously, though something told him this was no ordinary hermit. The man looked up as Aric neared, his eyes glinting with a wisdom that belied his humble appearance. "I have been waiting for you, young prince," the old man said, his voice like the creaking of ancient wood. "The forest speaks to those who listen, and it has told me of your coming." Aric felt a chill run down his spine, but he did not falter. "Are you the guardian of the Chalice?" he asked, his voice steady despite the unease that gnawed at him. The old man smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "I am but a guide, one who has walked these paths for longer than you can imagine. If you seek the crystal chalice, you will need my help to navigate the trials that lie ahead. But be warned, Prince Aric, the journey will test you in ways you cannot yet fathom." Aric nodded, the weight of the hermit's words settling heavily upon him. He knew now that this journey was not just about finding the chalice, but about proving himself worthy of the knowledge it bestowed. And with that understanding, he followed the old man deeper into the forest, the shadows of the trees closing in around them like a shroud. The deeper Aric and the hermit ventured into the forest of whispers, the more the air seemed to thrum with ancient magic. The trees grew denser, their trunks twisted and gnarled, as if they had witnessed countless ages pass by. The path became more treacherous, winding through thickets and over moss-covered stones that made each step uncertain. Yet, there was a sense of purpose guiding their journey, an unseen force that seemed to draw them ever closer to their destination. After what felt like days of travel, they came upon a clearing where the trees parted to reveal an ancient temple half buried in the earth. The stone structure was covered in ivy and moss, its once proud columns now cracked and weathered by time. Despite its age, there was an undeniable aura of power surrounding the temple, as if it were a place where the veil between the mortal world and the realm of the divine was thin. "This is the Temple of Lost Wisdom," the hermit said, his voice reverent as he gazed upon the structure. "It is here that you will face the first trial. The temple guards the secrets of the past, and only those who possess true wisdom may pass through its doors." Aric swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of anticipation and dread. He had known this journey would be challenging, but standing before the temple, he felt the weight of his quest more acutely than ever. Nevertheless, he knew there was no turning back. With a nod to the hermit, he stepped forward, approaching the temple's grand entrance. The massive stone doors creaked open at his touch, revealing a dimly lit hall within. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of battles, councils, and ancient ceremonies long forgotten by the world. The air inside was cool, and the only sound was the echo of Aric's footsteps as he ventured deeper into the hall. At the far end of the chamber, Aric found a series of stone tablets, each inscribed with a riddle. These were the riddles of the temple, tests designed to measure not just one's knowledge, but the depth of one's understanding. Aric approached the first tablet, his heart pounding in his chest as he read the inscription. What is the source of all knowledge, yet is never full? It gives freely, yet takes nothing in return. Aric pondered the riddle, his mind racing through the possibilities. He considered the nature of knowledge, of wisdom, and the ways in which it was shared and acquired. And then, the answer came to him, a realization as clear as day. Time, Aric whispered to himself. Time is the source of all knowledge. It reveals all things in due course and demands nothing in return. As soon as the words left his lips, the tablet began to glow with a soft golden light. The ground beneath him shifted, and a hidden door in the floor opened, revealing a staircase leading down into the depths of the temple. Aric hesitated for a moment, then steeled himself and descended the steps, knowing that the trial was far from over. The staircase led to another chamber, where the second riddle awaited him, carved into a pedestal at the center of the room. What is the most valuable treasure, yet cannot be held? It grows when shared and withers when hoarded. Aric felt the weight of this riddle more than the last. He closed his eyes, thinking back to the lessons he had learned from his tutors, from his father, and from the many books he had devoured in the library. This was not a riddle of gold or riches, but of something far more precious. Love, he said quietly. Love is the most valuable treasure. It grows stronger when shared, but withers away when kept to oneself. Again, the chamber responded to his answer, the pedestal glowing with a warm, comforting light. A door slid open in the wall, revealing the final chamber of the temple. As Aric entered the last room, he found a single tablet, larger than the others, inscribed with the final riddle. What is the one thing that once lost can never be regained? It is both fleeting and eternal, a gift given freely, but once spent is gone forever. This time the answer came to him almost instantly, for it was something he had considered often in his quiet moments of reflection. Time, he answered, his voice steady. Time is the most precious thing we have. Once it is gone, it can never be reclaimed. The final tablet blazed with light, and the entire temple seemed to resonate with a deep, harmonious hum. Aric felt a surge of energy course through him as the walls of the chamber faded away, revealing the night sky above, studded with stars. The temple had tested him, and he had proven himself worthy. With the trials behind him, Aric knew that the path to the crystal chalice of knowledge was now open. He had passed the trial of wisdom, but he also knew that greater challenges awaited. The hermit's words echoed in his mind, reminding him that his journey was far from over. He was no longer the same prince who had set out from Eldoria. He was now a seeker of truth, prepared to face whatever trials lay ahead in his quest for the chalice. The night sky above the temple shimmered with 1,000 stars as Prince Aric emerged from the chamber, the trials behind him and the path ahead clear. The forest of whispers, though still dark and enigmatic, no longer felt as foreboding. It was as if the trees themselves recognized his newfound wisdom, their branches parting to reveal a narrow trail leading deeper into the heart of the forest. The hermit, who had patiently awaited Aric's return, stood at the edge of the clearing, his weathered face unreadable. "You have done well, young prince," he said, his voice carrying a note of approval. "But the wisdom you have gained is but a key. The true test lies ahead, where the chalice is guarded by a force far older and more powerful than the temple's trials." Aric nodded, understanding that the journey was far from over. He could feel the weight of the prophecy pressing down upon him, urging him forward. With a deep breath, he followed the hermit down the trail, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath them. The path wound through the forest, growing narrower and more treacherous with each step. The trees seemed to close in around them, their twisted branches forming an almost impenetrable barrier. Yet, Aric pressed on, guided by an unseen force that pulled him toward his destiny. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a clearing bathed in an eerie silver light. At its center stood a figure clad in gleaming armor, his form both imposing and ethereal, the guardian of the chalice. He stood motionless, his sword planted firmly in the ground before him, its blade reflecting the light of the stars above. Aric felt a chill run down his spine as he approached the guardian, sensing the immense power that radiated from him. This was no ordinary knight, but a being bound by ancient magic, tasked with protecting the chalice from those unworthy of its knowledge. The guardian's eyes, glowing with a pale, otherworldly light, fixed upon Aric as he drew near. "Who dares to seek the crystal chalice of knowledge?" The guardian's voice echoed through the clearing, deep and resonant, as if the forest itself was speaking. "I am Prince Aric of Eldoria," Aric replied, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his heart. I have passed the trials of the temple and seek the chalice to protect my kingdom from the darkness that threatens it." The guardian remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing Aric's words. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he lifted his sword and pointed it toward the prince. "The chalice is not a weapon to be wielded lightly, nor a treasure to be hoarded. It is a beacon of knowledge, a guide to the truth. To claim it, you must prove yourself worthy not through strength of arms, but through the strength of your heart and mind." Aric felt a surge of determination. He had come too far to falter now. "What must I do to prove my worth?" he asked, meeting the guardian's gaze. The guardian lowered his sword, the glow in his eyes intensifying. "Answer me this, young prince. What is the greatest burden of knowledge? What price must one pay for the wisdom they seek?" Aric hesitated, the question resonating deeply within him. He thought back to the trials, to the riddles that had tested his understanding of life's most profound truths. The answer was not one of fear or sacrifice, but of acceptance. The greatest burden of knowledge, Aric began slowly, choosing his words with care, is the understanding that with wisdom comes responsibility. The more we know, the more we must act with compassion, humility, and the awareness that our choices affect not just ourselves, but all those around us. The price of wisdom is the weight of that responsibility, the knowledge that we must use our understanding to serve others, not ourselves. The guardian's expression remained inscrutable, but the light in his eyes dimmed to a softer glow. "You speak the truth, Prince Aric," he said, lowering his sword completely. "Wisdom is a gift, but also a burden, one that requires great courage to bear. You have shown both wisdom and humility, and for that, you may pass." The guardian stepped aside, revealing a stone archway at the far end of the clearing, framed by ancient runes that pulsed with a soft blue light. Beyond the archway, Aric could see the faint glow of the crystal chalice, its ethereal light calling to him like a distant star. Aric took a deep breath, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had proven himself worthy, but he knew that this was only the beginning. The chalice would grant him the knowledge he sought, but it would also demand more of him than he had ever imagined. With the guardian's words still echoing in his mind, Aric stepped through the archway, ready to face the truth that awaited him. As Prince Aric stepped through the stone archway, the world seemed to shift around him. The forest and the guardian faded into the distance, replaced by a vast chamber carved from the very heart of the earth. The walls shimmered with veins of crystal, casting prismatic reflections that danced like ghosts in the dim light. At the center of the chamber, upon a pedestal of ancient stone, rested the crystal chalice of knowledge. The chalice was more magnificent than any description or legend could have prepared him for. It was carved from flawless crystal, its surface smooth and cool, yet it seemed to pulse with a life of its own, filled with swirling light that shifted from deep blues to vibrant golds. The chalice radiated an aura of wisdom, a presence that filled the room with a sense of reverence and awe. Aric approached it slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. The air around the chalice hummed with energy, and he could feel the weight of centuries of knowledge pressing down upon him. This was the moment he had journeyed for, the moment that would define his destiny. With trembling hands, Aric reached out and grasped the chalice. The instant his fingers touched the cool crystal, a wave of light surged through him, filling his mind with visions so vivid and powerful that he staggered back. The world around him dissolved, replaced by scenes from Eldoria's ancient past, present, and even glimpses of a possible future. He saw the founding of his kingdom, the first kings and queens who had forged a realm from the wild lands. He saw battles fought and alliances formed, the rise and fall of dynasties, and the secrets that had been buried deep within the annals of history. But there was more. He saw the true heart of Eldoria, a magic that ran through the land itself, connecting everything in an intricate web of life and power. Then the vision shifted, showing him the present. He saw his father, King Aemon, sitting upon the throne, burdened by the weight of his crown. He saw the people of Eldoria, their lives woven together in a complex tapestry of hopes, dreams, and fears. And he saw the darkness that loomed on the horizon, a shadow that threatened to engulf the kingdom if left unchecked. But it was the final vision that shook Aric to his core. He saw a face he recognized, one of the most trusted advisors in the royal court, a man who had been by his father's side for years. Yet, behind that familiar face lay treachery, a mind twisted by ambition and greed. This advisor was the source of the darkness, the traitor who sought to bring Eldoria to ruin for his own gain. The realization hit Aric like a physical blow. The knowledge granted by the chalice was not just a gift, but a terrible burden. He now understood the truth of the Guardian's words. The responsibility that came with wisdom was immense, and the choices he made would determine the fate of his kingdom. The visions began to fade, leaving Aric alone once more in the crystal chamber. He released the chalice, his hands shaking, his mind reeling from the torrent of knowledge that had been poured into him. He had learned the secrets of Eldoria, the truth about its past, and the danger that threatened its future. But with that knowledge came the burden of action. He knew what he had to do. The chalice had shown him the path, but it was up to him to walk it. He had to return to Eldoria, to confront the traitor, and to protect his kingdom from the darkness that sought to consume it. But this would not be a simple task. He would need to be as wise as he was courageous, to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics, and to rally those who still believed in the kingdom's future. Aric took one last look at the crystal chalice, its light now a steady, calming glow. He felt a sense of resolve settle over him, a determination born of the knowledge he had gained. The journey was not over. In fact, it was just beginning. But he was no longer the curious prince who had set out from the castle. He was now a guardian of Eldoria's future, armed with the wisdom of the ages. With a final nod to the chalice, Aric turned and left the chamber, his steps sure and purposeful. The truth had been revealed, and now it was time to act. The journey back through the forest of whispers felt both familiar and alien to Prince Aric. The trees, once towering and ominous, now seemed to bend in deference to his passage, as if recognizing the change that had come over him. The air was thick with the scent of earth and rain, and the forest seemed to hum with a quiet energy, as though it too knew that something significant was about to unfold. Beside him, the old hermit moved with a grace that belied his age, his eyes glinting with a knowing light. They had walked in silence since leaving the chamber of the crystal chalice, each absorbed in their own thoughts. But as they neared the edge of the forest, the hermit finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "You have seen the truth, Prince Aric, and now you carry the burden of that knowledge," he said, his gaze fixed ahead. "But remember, knowledge alone is not enough. It is what you choose to do with it that will define your destiny, and the destiny of Eldoria." Aric nodded, the hermit's words resonating deeply within him. He had seen the treachery that threatened his kingdom, the darkness that lurked within the very heart of the royal court. But the visions granted by the chalice had also shown him the path he must take, the steps that would lead him to confront the traitor and protect his people. As they emerged from the forest, the sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the rolling hills and fields that stretched out before them. The sight of his homeland filled Aric with a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer the prince who had left Eldoria in search of ancient knowledge. He was a leader, armed with the wisdom to guide his kingdom through the trials to come. The return to the castle was swift, but the journey had taken its toll. Aric's body was weary, but his mind was sharp, buzzing with the weight of the chalice's revelations. As they approached the castle gates, the familiar sight of the towering walls and watchful guards brought a sense of calm, but also a steely resolve. The hermit stopped at the edge of the castle grounds, his role in Aric's journey complete. "This is where we part ways, young prince," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "You have the wisdom to succeed, but remember that the path ahead is fraught with danger. Trust in what you have learned and do not be swayed by fear or doubt." Aric turned to the hermit, gratitude welling up within him. "Thank you for everything," he said sincerely. "I would not have come this far without your guidance." The hermit smiled, a fleeting expression that softened his weathered features. You have always had the strength within you, Aric. The chalice simply helped you see it. Now go. Your kingdom needs you. With a final nod, Aric turned and made his way to the castle, his mind already racing with the steps he needed to take. The castle was a hive of activity, as it always was, with courtiers, servants, and guards moving about their duties. But to Aric, everything seemed sharper, more vivid, as if the chalice had granted him the ability to see the world with new eyes. He moved through the familiar halls, his steps quick and purposeful. He had no time to waste. Every moment was precious, every decision critical. The vision of the traitor loomed large in his mind, and he knew that the key to confronting him lay not in brute force, but in careful strategy. Aric reached his chambers and paused, taking a moment to center himself. He had to be careful, for the traitor was cunning and well-connected. A direct accusation would lead to chaos, perhaps even civil war. He needed to gather evidence, to outmaneuver the traitor in a way that left no doubt of his guilt. The prince's mind raced as he planned his next move. He would need allies, those who could be trusted to stand by him when the time came to reveal the truth. But first, he needed to observe, to listen, and to gather the pieces of the puzzle that would expose the traitor for who he truly was. As the night descended over Eldoria, Prince Aric knew that the real battle was just beginning. He had returned from his journey with the knowledge he sought, but it was now up to him to use that knowledge to save his kingdom. The future of Eldoria rested on his shoulders, and he was determined not to let it fall into darkness. The next morning dawned clear and crisp, the light of the sun casting a golden hue over the castle of Eldoria. Yet, beneath the serene surface of daily life, a current of tension ran deep. Prince Aric, now armed with the wisdom of the crystal chalice, moved with a quiet intensity. His every action measured, his every word carefully chosen. He knew the time had come to expose the traitor and protect his kingdom from the impending darkness. Aric began his day by attending the royal council, a gathering of the most powerful and influential figures in the kingdom. The room was grand, with high ceilings and walls adorned with tapestries depicting Eldoria's proud history. At the head of the table sat King Aemon, his face etched with the lines of age and the burdens of rulership. To his right was Lord Cedric, the advisor who had served the crown for decades, his sharp eyes betraying nothing of the duplicity that Aric now knew lay within. The council was discussing matters of state, the usual topics of trade and diplomacy, but Aric's mind was elsewhere, focused on the task at hand. He had spent the night formulating a plan, one that would reveal Lord Cedric's treachery without plunging the kingdom into chaos. The key, he knew, was to let Cedric expose himself. As the discussions continued, Aric waited for the right moment. When the topic turned to the security of the kingdom, Aric saw his opening. "Father," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I believe there is a matter of grave importance that we must address. A threat that has been lurking in the shadows, unseen but growing stronger each day." King Aemon looked at his son with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Speak, Aric. What threat do you speak of?" Aric rose from his seat, all eyes in the room turning to him. "There is a traitor among us, someone who has been working from within to weaken our kingdom, to sow discord and prepare the way for our enemies." A murmur of shock rippled through the council, but Aric kept his gaze steady, fixed on Lord Cedric, whose expression remained impassive. "This traitor," Aric continued, "has used their position of power to manipulate decisions, to gather allies, and to plot the downfall of Eldoria. But their time is at an end. The truth will be revealed, and justice will be done." Lord Cedric leaned forward, his voice calm but edged with a hint of challenge. "These are serious accusations, Prince Aric. Do you have proof to support such claims?" Aric met Cedric's gaze, the wisdom of the Chalice guiding his words. "I do," he replied, holding Cedric's stare. "But before I present it, I wish to give the traitor a chance to confess, to spare themselves the full weight of the law by admitting their crimes here and now." The room fell into a tense silence, the council members exchanging uneasy glances. Lord Cedric's eyes narrowed, his mind racing to calculate the odds. Aric could see the flicker of doubt, the momentary crack in Cedric's facade. The Chalice had shown him the truth, and now it was up to Cedric to either confess or gamble on his innocence. When Cedric finally spoke, his voice was smooth, but there was an edge of desperation beneath the surface. "This is preposterous," he declared. "You come before the council with baseless accusations, expecting us to believe in a phantom threat. If you have evidence, show it. Otherwise, this is nothing more than an attempt to discredit those who have served the crown loyally." Aric remained calm, knowing that Cedric's bravado was a thin veil for his fear. "Very well," Aric said, turning to the council. "The traitor's actions have been recorded, their meetings in secret uncovered, their plans to weaken our borders and alliances laid bare. The proof is undeniable, and it will be presented in due course. But for now, let me ask this council, if the traitor's actions were to be revealed, what would be the appropriate punishment?" The council members shifted uncomfortably, and King Aemon's brow furrowed in deep thought. "The punishment for treason is death," he said gravely. "But we do not act on accusations alone. Evidence must be clear, and justice must be fair." Aric nodded, satisfied that the seed of doubt had been planted. "Indeed, Father. And that is why I propose we convene a special tribunal, one that will examine the evidence thoroughly and ensure that the truth is brought to light. Lord Cedric's composure faltered for a split second, a fleeting look of panic crossing his face. It was all Aric needed to see. The prince knew that Cedric would try to cover his tracks, to manipulate the tribunal if he could. But Aric was ready. He had the Chalice's wisdom, and more importantly, he had the will to see this through to the end. The council adjourned, the tension in the air palpable. As the members filed out, Aric caught Cedric's eye once more, a silent promise passing between them. The game was far from over, but Aric knew that he held the upper hand. The traitor had been exposed, if not publicly, then at least in the eyes of those who mattered. The time for subtlety was past. Now it was a battle of wits and strategy, and Aric was determined to emerge victorious. The future of Eldoria hung in the balance, and he would not let it fall. The special tribunal was convened within days, its members carefully chosen from among Eldoria's most trusted nobles and advisors. The mood in the castle was tense, a palpable undercurrent of anticipation running through the halls as word spread of the accusations and the impending trial. Prince Aric stood at the center of it all, the weight of his responsibilities heavy upon his shoulders. Yet his resolve remained unshaken. In the grand chamber where the tribunal was held, the air was thick with the scent of burning torches and the murmur of whispered conversations. The walls, adorned with tapestries depicting the kingdom's glorious past, seemed to loom larger than usual, as if they too were watching the events unfold with bated breath. At the head of the chamber sat King Aemon, his face grave as he surveyed the gathered council. To his right, Aric stood tall and composed, his eyes fixed on Lord Cedric, who sat opposite him, flanked by his supporters. The advisor's usually calm demeanor was marred by a subtle tension, the weight of the accusations bearing down on him like a storm cloud. The proceedings began with a recounting of the charges: treason, conspiracy, and the intent to destabilize the kingdom from within. As the evidence was presented, a hush fell over the chamber. Documents, intercepted messages, and witness testimonies were laid out before the tribunal, each piece painting a damning picture of Lord Cedric's betrayal. Aric watched Cedric's reaction closely, noting the flicker of fear in his eyes as the truth was laid bare for all to see. The advisor's attempts to refute the evidence were weak, his arguments crumbling under the weight of the proof against him. The once respected advisor, who had wielded so much power in the court, now appeared small and desperate. When it was Aric's turn to speak, he addressed the tribunal with a calm authority that belied his youth. "Lords and ladies of the council," he began, his voice steady, "the evidence before you is clear. Lord Cedric has betrayed not only the crown, but also the trust of every citizen of Eldoria. His actions have endangered the kingdom and its people, all in pursuit of his own ambition. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. But this is not just about punishing a traitor. It is about ensuring that Eldoria remains strong and united in the face of the challenges that lie ahead. The crystal chalice of knowledge has revealed the truth to me, but it is up to us, those who govern this land, to act upon that truth with wisdom and justice. The room was silent as Aric concluded his speech, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Even King Aemon, who had been watching his son closely, seemed moved by the prince's resolve. The tribunal deliberated for hours, the tension in the chamber mounting with each passing moment. Finally, the decision was made. Lord Cedric was found guilty of all charges. The sentence was swift and severe: banishment from Eldoria, his lands and titles stripped from him. It was a punishment that would serve as a warning to others who might think to follow in his treacherous footsteps. As Cedric was led away, his face a mask of anger and shame, Aric felt a wave of relief wash over him. The traitor had been dealt with, and the immediate threat to the kingdom had been neutralized. But Aric knew that this was just one battle in a much larger war. The darkness that the chalice had shown him still loomed on the horizon, and there were more challenges yet to come. After the tribunal, Aric sought a moment of solitude. He wandered through the castle's gardens, the cool evening air, a welcome balm after the intensity of the day. As he walked among the blooming flowers and ancient trees, he reflected on all that had transpired. The chalice had granted him knowledge, but with it had come a profound understanding of the responsibilities that came with leadership. He realized now that wisdom was not just about knowing the right answers, but about making the right choices, even when they were difficult. It was about balancing justice with mercy, strength with compassion, and always keeping the well-being of the people at the forefront of every decision. Aric knew that the journey he had undertaken would leave a lasting impact on Eldoria, shaping the kingdom's future in ways he could not yet fully comprehend. But he also knew that he was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the wisdom he had gained and the determination to protect his kingdom at all costs. As the first stars began to appear in the twilight sky, Aric felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. The legacy of the crystal chalice of knowledge would live on, not just in the actions he took today, but in the way he would lead Eldoria in the years to come. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Prince Aric had become the leader his kingdom needed, a guardian of both its past and its future. With the weight of the chalice's wisdom guiding him, Aric turned back toward the castle, ready to embrace the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the courage and wisdom that had been forged in the trials of the chalice.